should be made is that the ID argument seems to be an argument from ignorance. That is, we don't see clearly and directly the sequence of causes that yielded these complexities in nature. That does not permit us jumping to the conclusion that intelligent design must therefore be at work. An explanation must stand on its own evidence, not on the failure of alternatives. Methodologically, it would be more sound to say and more responsible to say, we do not see, than to fill in the blanks with an intelligent designer outside the system of natural causes. An important principle in science is that the absence of evidence is not the evidence of absence. Lastly, one other note comes from the evidence that we do see. Jerry Coyne from University of Chicago has quipped, either life resulted not from intelligent design but from evolution, or the intelligent designer is a cosmic prankster who designed everything to make it look as though it had evolved, unquote. Another problem, is this good theology? As difficult as it may be to affirm ID as good science, I think really the deeper difficulties are theological. And my question is, what is at stake theologically here in this discussion? First of all, that argument from ignorance that I said is not good science is a very close relation to a theological maneuver we call God of the gaps. And that has never gone well for us in theology. The gaps keep getting filled, and the space for this kind of God is closed out. It is ill-advised to consign the divine to the restricted spaces of the unknown, the uncontrollable, the unpredictable. Such a God is too small and will get a bit smaller with every scientific advance. We have a disappearing deity there. Secondly, if there is any doubt, I do not think this approach works as a proof for God. That in itself is not so damning. The alleged proofs for God only made sense to people who already believed on other grounds anyway. Whether one believes or not is a question for faith. Any conclusions we reach there are always underdetermined by the data. Where ID intends to function as a kind of evidence or proof for God, its reach exceeds its grasp. As with all the other arguments, we end up at most with a pointer toward God and not a proof for God. A pointer is not something. A pointer at least can give us reason to believe that we're not unreasonable in believing. However, the deepest difficulty here is with the kind of God to which ID points. The God of Christian faith is not conceived as a designer primarily, a kind of cosmic engineer, but rather as a loving and generous creator, one who makes a space for the other and upholds creation in its integrity and autonomy, that old doctrine of concursus. A deity who manifests compassionate solidarity with us and our finitude, freedom, and fragility. That's the God of Christian faith. To speak of God as a designer conjures up a very different vision. We begin to entertain notions of a pre-existent blueprint in the mind of God that's just working itself out inexorably. This is doubly difficult for process theologians and other open theists. It seems too constraining, too coercive, too closed. The freedom of the creation in its semi-autonomous unfolding gets compromised, and the future is not genuinely open. More troubling, and we keep coming back to this in our conversations, is the theodicy problem. This picture pushes us to ask about the defects, the imperfections that pervade the living world. In so many instances, a good engineer could have done better. Consider the decided mismatch between the human birth canal and the size of an infant's head. Some of you know exactly what I mean. Is this an intelligent design? Theologically, this sort of thing would be problematic if it has to be assigned to divine design. How much better it is to know that the mismatch is a function of the human cranial capacity increasing over eons. Or on a larger scale, what about the waste? And I'll persist in thinking about that. The carnage of the eons. 99% of the species that have ever existed are extinct. One is tempted to say that if this is a design, it's not a very good one. Beyond this, consider the extent and suffering of creatures along the way. Francis Ayala, in Refuting Intelligent Design, notes that the world abounds in cruel behaviors. And I feel I must apologize beforehand for the suffering I'm going to put you through as I rehearse some of those. Numerous predators eat their prey alive. Parasites destroy their living host from within. Many species of spiders and insects, the females devour their mates. In some midgets, the tiny flies, the females capture and kill and consume the males and are only fertilized as they digest the male organs.
Oh.
Cannibalism, even among the higher primates, is not uncommon. Chimpanzees, our near relation, will tear apart their prey, sometimes taking a smaller monkey and holding it alive while they will bite it, tearing off morsels of flesh. And now at this level, it seems counterintuitive to me to do what some do, to say, oh, we don't know whether they really experience pain when we experience pain. They act as if they're experiencing pain as they scream. Environmental philosopher Holmes Ralston, reflecting on this aspect of nature, gives an account of pelican chicks. John Sanders brought this to our attention Tuesday. Female pelicans lay 2 eggs. The second is 2 days after the first. The second chick is allowed to survive only if the first succumbs. Its usual fate is to be attacked and fed to the larger chick, or driven from the nest. The parents will prevent its returning to the nest. It thrashes around until it dies from starvation. A thoughtful look at the suffering at the heart of nature, the breadth and extent of this, I think merits the observation Ralston makes that nature is cruciform, that it is a via dolorosa long before Passion Week. Such a picture is certainly not compatible with a designer reputed to be benevolent, omniscient, and omnipotent. It is, however, compatible with a process of natural selection. With these theological quandaries in view, theologian John Haught has spoken of Darwin's gift to theology. For with evolutionary theory, a theologian no longer needs to explain the particular imperfections, dysfunctions, and cruelties of the natural world in terms of divine design. Arthur Peacock has reminded us what theologian Aubrey Moore said way back in 1891. Darwinism appeared, and under the guise of a foe, did the work of a friend.